So today we have to do the new chapter, and I think last time we had a little discussion of the concept of sacrifice.
You
So
were
we
about to say something, no? You told us that last class that you will tell us something, some interesting fact or something.
oh, I don't remember now. Unfortunate. Idea of the connectedness of the universe, and everything is connected. And when it is connected, obviously there is an interdependence. Everything depends on everything else. You cannot just say that you can act independently and you don't need the world. You don't need sometimes out of egoistic feelings, we may feel that I don't need anybody, I can survive on my own. You can't. You depend on the universe, you depend on your one or two elements of your dependence you can get rid of. You can say, I don't want my family, and you get away from it. Okay? There is a very interesting case in my street. There is a boy who did not agree with his father because his father married again after his wife died, and this boy did not like it, and he quit the family. So his father told him, "You can leave. I have no objection. You can leave." So he left the family, and he is now just roaming about in the streets. Okay, so it's possible to not to depend on your family, but that's not the way. That's an egoistic way of doing things. So it is rather you have to use your connectedness in the right way. That is the sacrifice. The sacrifice is the correct behavior to realize that you are not alone in the world and that you are dependent on everything else. Even when we think that whatever I am doing is my own responsibility and all, that's not perfectly true at all. Because the universe is actually determining what you are. You are a small cog. You are one small atom in this vast connected universe. So that is the thing. So, did we read the first para?
No.
Yes, yes, we read.
We read it. So that's a basic idea that there is even when the divine, the All Father created these peoples. The All Father is um,
Prajapati.
Prajapati. That's right, Prajapati, the All Father, Prajapati. He has created all the powers in a connected way. The connectedness is a very important concept, and even when there's a huge discussion in India now, Atmanirbharta, let us be self-dependent, depend only on ourselves. So not depend on others. Is that possible fully? No. But it can certainly be that you take responsibility for your own and you try to live in harmony with others. You take advantage. You can't live absolutely independent of everybody else. But certainly you must depend on yourself as much as possible within the concept of sacrifice, the connectedness. So, if you have read the first one, we will start reading the second one now. Okay, but most often. So, shall we start reading? Who will read today? Any one of you?
Yeah.
Shall I read?
Yes, yes.
But often the sacrifice is done unconsciously, egoistically, and without knowledge or acceptance of the true meaning of the great world right. It is so that the vast majority of earth creatures do it, and when it is so done, the individual derives only a mechanical minimum of natural inevitable profit, achieves by it only a slow, painful progress, limited and tortured by the smallness and suffering of the ego. Only when the heart, the will, and the mind of knowledge associate themselves with the law and gladly follow it, can there come the deep joy and the happy fruitfulness of divine sacrifice. The mind's knowledge of the law and the heart's gladness in it culminate in the perception that it is to our own self and spirit and the one self and spirit of all that we give. And this is true even when our self-offering is still to our fellow creatures or to lesser powers and principles and not yet to the supreme. Not for the sake of the wife, says Yajnavalkya in the Upanishad, but for the sake of the self is the wife dear to us. This in the lower sense of the individual self is the hard fact behind the colored and passionate professions of egoistic love. But in a higher sense, it is the inner significance of that love too, which is not egoistic but divine. All true love and all sacrifice are in their essence nature's contradictions of the primary egoism and its separative error. It is her attempt to turn from a necessary first fragmentation towards a recovered oneness. All unity between creatures is, in its essence, a self finding, a fusion, and with that from which we are separated, a discovery of one's self in others.
Okay. Very involved language, and we have to get the basic idea of what he's saying. So we'll start looking at each sentence. But most often, the sacrifice is done unconsciously, egoistically, and without knowledge or acceptance of the true meaning of the great world right. The great world right, okay, the sacrifice of the divine. See, in fact, in the mother, Srimdo writes that when the divine sacrifices his own knowledge, his own consciousness, his own power, and comes down into the physical world, he makes the one into the many, but they are all interconnected. And this is a great sacrifice that he does. And it is this sacrifice which one has to understand that there is a connectedness. And very often we don't do that. In fact, when you steal, okay, when there is stealing going on, thieving, that is the absolute contradiction of the concept of sacrifice. You have to give something to receive something. Everything is in that way. Okay, as I say, the Americans say that there is no free lunch in the universe. For everything, you have to. There is always an exchange, but this exchange has to be done in a very happy mood and not in a sense of I am losing something very precious to myself. That's what we normally understand by the word sacrifice. But the word sacrifice doesn't have that lower meaning. It has a higher meaning that you happily give yourself to others. And there also there are so many grades. No? First of all, you don't give. That's the first step. You try to take everything for yourself. That's the ego working. Second is, you realize that sometimes you have to give to receive. So if you go to a shop, you have to pay to get what you want. Okay, so there is a giving and a receiving. And sometimes it can be done very unwillingly, but when it is done willingly, that's all right. Okay, but then later on you realize that when you give yourself, you are always receiving. It may not be very, very obvious, but there is always a return upon your giving. Okay. So, but most often it is done without that, simply saying, without the acceptance of the true meaning of the great world right. The world right is the world sacrifice. In the mother, Srimdo has written the sacrifice of the Purusha, but much more really, he says, the holocaust of Prakriti. It is the divine mother who plunges and into the physical world of density and darkness and ignorance and suffering, but from the highest level where she has got everything. So this is so we have to go back to where we came from. That's the whole yogic journey. The world right means that. So it is so that the vast majority of earth creatures do it. Mostly it is done in a very unwilling manner. The vast majority of earth creatures do it. Earth creatures, including even animals. No? So that's interesting. He's using the word earth creatures. He's not saying mankind. Okay? So it happens even at the lower level, below mankind. And when it is so done, the individual derives only a mechanical minimum of natural inevitable profit. Even when you are stealing, you are contradicting the law of sacrifice, but you benefit somewhat. Okay? Somewhat. Inevitable profit. Natural inevitable profit. Achieves it by it only a slow, painful progress. Your progress of consciousness from a lower to a higher becomes possible and faster when you do the practice this, the concept of sacrifice consciously. But if it is unconscious, you will get minimum benefit. That's what he's saying. And by slow, painful progress, limited and tortured by the small and suffering of the ego. So long as one is in the ego, naturally the ego is that which limits you, that which makes you feel separate from others. So you are limiting yourself into a small, you are isolating yourself purposely when you are in the egoistic consciousness. And you do that without understanding. There are so many stories about the frog in the well who thinks that that's the whole world. Okay, there are so many other stories like that which show that the human beings and also other creatures, they limit themselves to their own sphere and think that they are okay, but they are not. Only when the heart, Srenda is saying, only when the heart, the will and the mind of knowledge associate themselves with the law and gladly follow it, can there come the deep joy and happy fruitfulness of divine sacrifice. Even when so as I said in the beginning, it's all egoistic. At the animal level, it's absolutely egoistic. You are doing only for yourself. When human beings come in, we realize that sometimes we have to give to get, and then it is done unwillingly, then it is done willingly, then it is done happily. Sometimes when you are helping a neighbor or helping your co-student or whatever, then you feel happy that you have helped them. But there is a egoistic, the ego has become, from a gross ego, it has become a subtle ego. Okay, so but when the ego disappears completely, one gives oneself without egoism and without any expectation of a return of benefit. That is the real self-giving. That is the real self-giving. You help because it's the right thing to do without expectation of return. Nishkama karma. So that's why he has graduated to this concept of sacrifice from Nishkama karma. It's a very natural step. I go to the next sentence. The mind's knowledge of the law and the heart's gladness in it culminate in the perception that it is to our own self and spirit and the one self and spirit of all that we give. Okay? When you realize that you are one with all, and actually when you are in the cosmic consciousness, you feel yourself to be in everybody and everybody else is in you. But when you feel yourself to be in everybody, when you are helping somebody else, you are actually helping yourself. So that's what is there. And the next quotation is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. There is the Yajnavalka. Yajnavalka, you have to pronounce the JN when you write in English, but in Sanskrit it is Yajnavalka. In our Indian languages it is Yajna, we say. Pragya, we say. But actually the name is Sanskrit, you have to pronounce it Prajna. Okay. So when you are helping, so the quotation goes, he has two wives, okay, Katyayani and Maitreyi. These are the two wives he has. And by the way, that reminds you that this idea of monogamy is a Western concept. It was never there in India like that, okay. And then the rules and regulations have come against polygamy and monogamy and all that. But in India, it was never an issue, okay. Very often used to have two wives. Even recently I have seen a video in which there are two sisters who are married to the same man, but they are very happy, the two sisters. I saw that video and I was surprised. Even in modern times it's like that. Okay, anyway, so he has two wives, Kartikeya and Maitreyi. So he tells both of them that I am going to now give up my properties and I'll bequeath them to you. So this is what he tells. And one of them is happy. She says, okay. But the other one, Maitreyi, she says that will I realize the divine by you giving your property to me? And he says no. And then he starts and the Upanishad starts telling you what is the way to achieve the divine. So that's the story. And he says in one place, he says, not for the sake of the wife, says Yajnavalkya in the Upanishad, but for the sake of the self is the wife dear to us. And this has got two meanings, at a lower meaning and a higher meaning. The lower meaning is very clear. When I love somebody, it is for my own satisfaction that I am loving. Okay? It's mostly like that. And then you expect a return also. You expect a return from the other person. It's very clear nowadays in newspapers and TV, if you see programs, there is any number of men, it's not uncommon at all nowadays. Any number of men, when they want to approach a woman and there is no response, they get angry. And then they put acid on their face and all that sort of thing, or even murder them. Any number of cases in India. So it's very obvious that when you love somebody, it is out of your own egoism and you're wanting something. So that's a lower sense. The lower sense is the ego which wants satisfaction. But there is a higher sense of that same sentence, okay? Not for the sake of the wife. Because when I reach a cosmic consciousness, my wife and I have the same self. They are the same. And I see myself in her. By her, it can be anybody, the whole thing. So naturally, when I am loving, I am giving myself to myself. So that's a higher meaning. That's what is being mentioned here. So there are two. So the law is true at the lower level and true at the higher level. Only in the lower one it is the wrong way, and in the higher one it is the right way. So this is a very interesting sentence. Not for the sake of the wife, says Yajnavalkya, but for the sake of the self is the wife dear to us. Self, Atman, okay? Brahman. When the cosmic consciousness, okay, is when you realize that you are yourself is everywhere. It's Brahman, which is omnipresent. So that's what it is. Then Srila goes on to say, but a higher sense, it is the inner significance of that love too, which is not egoistic but divine. All true love and all sacrifice are, in their essence, nature's contradiction of the primary egoism and its separative error. The ego, I have told you, is that which makes you feel separate. No? So, again and again I keep repeating, don't think that egoism is sense of superiority, sense of intolerance of others, thinking that I am right always, arrogance, pride. These things are the results of ego. Ego is that which makes you feel separate from everybody else. Okay? That is ego. And these are the consequences of the ego. So, those who are even not only proud but even humble, they also have an ego. Remember that. Okay? Because they feel themselves separate. So, all true love and sacrifice are in their essence nature's contradiction of the primary ego. In other words, the true giving of yourself, the sacrifice, is the opposite of egoism. Separative error. The sense of separation is an error. It is her attempt, nature's attempt, to turn from a necessary first fragmentation towards a recovered oneness. Note the words, necessary first fragmentation. The one becoming the many, and they are all connectedness, but you have to develop yourself first. So the ego was the helper. Later on, when you have developed your ego fully and you are a developed person, your consciousness has become quite developed, you have to give up the ego. So, in the beginning, it is necessary. Necessary first fragmentation. Fragmentation, the individualization of the one. The one universal becomes the individualized, limited, egoistic human being. Why human being?
Ranganath,
Yeah, tell me.
why necessary?
That's what. When you, suppose you are from the animal level, you are coming up to a human level, okay? You have to develop yourself. You have to develop your consciousness, no? So if you, see, when you are, okay, we'll go into a little detail on this. There is a gradation in nature, evolution from matter to life, okay? That we know. Now, is not matter and life opposites? Are not they opposites? Matter is dead. There is nothing in it. Okay, it is sleeping. But when you get life, okay, you have to maintain yourself and you have to start looking, and there is movement. So movement and dead non-movement are opposites. So you have to develop yourself. So that is the reason why if there is no desire, if there is no motive, there will be no incentive for you to make an effort. Is that clear? So
No,
desire has.
Ranada, I meant
Why is it
why
necessary?
from one we divided into fragmentation? Why the first movement into fragmentation?
Oh, oh,
Why
oh,
is it necessary?
okay,
Why
okay.
was it necessary?
So your question is not about the ego, but about the fundamental concept of the one becoming the many. Okay, I understand. But that's very detailed discussion. Okay, but there are many ways of looking at it, and this question as to why the one becomes the many is not fully comprehensible in the normal human consciousness. But we can think of certain things which can give indications. The one indication is that the divine wants to experience, okay, the journey from darkness to light, not in one way, but in many ways. Why should there be? Okay, there are so many ways of looking at it. Which is better? One single, or should there not be many possibilities? So many possibilities is one way that the divine divides himself up into infinite number of possibilities. Okay. Then if you think of the only one, there is monotony. There is only fixity. There is no flexibility. If you think about it deeply, you will see that how the many is far superior to the one. The most ridiculous example I can give you is, suppose you have for dinner, okay, only one item. Okay. Will you enjoy that, or will you have two or three or four? That's why in India we have a thali with about 10 items, and then you have your rice and your chapati. Okay. So, so it is much more interesting to have many. So this is one way. The other way is, the other explanation is that the divine wants to experience himself in infinite ways, not only one. The divine being infinite, he is not satisfied with only one. He wants two, he wants three, he wants four, he wants 8, 16, 32, 64. He wants infinite number of ways to experience himself. Variety. That is why the one becomes the many. Okay. But when you are in the many, then you are missing the oneness, so you have to go back there. And that's what happens at level 2. You start realizing the oneness at level 2, which is the spiritual planes of consciousness. But now you are getting more of the oneness and less of the many. And the ascetic doesn't want the many, he goes away. But Srimdev is saying both are necessary. You have to have oneness as well as multiplicity. And where is that available? Is that available in the spiritual planes of consciousness? Little bits and pieces you can get there, but the real thing comes at the supramental level. So you want both. The divine wants both, not only one, but the many. If you start thinking about it, you will see that yes, it's very reasonable to have the many. Okay? So think about it and you will see that yes, it is far better than only oneness. Monotony, okay, and fixity. These are the opposite principles of variety, wealth, richness, okay, difference. There's so much more, okay. The more you think about it, the more you will see that it is very desirable to have one. In so many different ways, and you can give sometimes very banal examples to yourself. Suppose you have only one type of fruit. Okay, would you like that, or would you like a variety of fruits? There are so many different ways of looking at it. Okay, so oneness is a natural, the original state, and the many are the result of that. So that is the. Oh, I thought you were asking the other why the ego is necessary. I thought you were asking about that. Okay, so this is, I told you, it's not a question, it's not a, one has to think about it and see which is desirable. Would you like to be in a place where only oneness is there, only monotony and only one type of way, or you want several? So that you think about it, then it will be, you will see that yes, the many, multiplicity, variety is also very desirable. Okay. All true love and all sacrifice are in their sense nature's contradiction of the primary egoism and its separative within. It is an attempt to turn from a necessary first fragmentation towards a recovered oneness. All unity between creatures is in its essence a self-finding. You find yourself in everything. Cosmic consciousness, a fusion with that from which we have separated, and a discovery of oneself in others. This is the cosmic consciousness. When you go to the cosmic consciousness, you find yourself to be everywhere. You are omnipresent and you are there in every creature. I told you, cosmic consciousness has got two aspects. One, you see yourself in everybody else. Okay? Oh, there's no difference. Or the other one is you see everybody and everything in yourself. So the causes the apprehensive consciousness and the comprehensive consciousness. So there are two ways. Okay. So here he is speaking about the apprehensive consciousness. You find yourself to be in everybody. I told you there is a sonnet of those. He says, to whichever personality I turn, I see myself in that person but with a different face. But essentially it's the same. Myself is a self of everybody else. It's not the. Essentially it's the same. Okay. We can go to the next para, which is also about 3/4 of a page. So, Pallu read this now. Who will read the next? Archana, they normally can't read. So, Gitanjali, Tarika, anyone of
Shall
you?
I read?
Yes, do that.
But it is only a divine love and unity that can possess in the light what the human forms of these things seek for in the darkness. For the true unity, for the true unity is not merely an association and agglomeration like that of physical cells joined by a life of common interests. It is not even an emotional understanding, sympathy, solidarity, or close drawing together. Only then are we really unified with those separated from us by the divisions of nature, when we annul the division and find ourselves in that which seems to us not ourselves. Association is a vital and physical unity. Its sacrifice is that of mutual aid and concessions. Nearness, sympathy, solidarity create a mental, moral, and emotional unity. Theirs is a sacrifice of mutual support and mutual gratifications. But the true unity is spiritual. Its sacrifice is mutual self giving, an interfusion of our inner substance. The law of sacrifice travels in nature towards its culmination in this complete and unreserved self giving. It awakens the consciousness of one common self in the giver and the object of the sacrifice. This culmination of sacrifice is the height even of human love and devotion when it tries to become divine. For there too, the highest peak of love points into a heaven of complete mutual self giving. Its summit is the rapturous fusing of two souls into one.
Okay, so he's now making a distinction between what is true unity and what is unity at the lower levels. He's making a very clear distinction. So we'll see that. When you feel one with your family, okay, and you will support yourself, is that really unity? Or is that a mental unity or a moral unity? Even your patriotism, when you feel yourself to be one with the whole family, okay, with that nation, is that also true unity? That's what he's discussing here. And the question comes up whether the French Revolution, the three main ideas of the French Revolution: liberté, égalité, fraternité. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Is that possible at the human level? That was discussing, and a very clear contradiction of that it cannot be, the real unity cannot come at the mental level. It can come, start coming at the spiritual level to a certain extent. That's what he is explaining here. We'll go into each sentence and see what he says. At the, you may say that, oh, but there's so much of harmony in a family, but that harmony is a constructed harmony. It lasts for a certain amount of time, but it may break up. Okay, that's why divorces are so common. Okay, and not that the other thing doesn't exist. It does exist, but it is not the real unity. Okay? So, and then even the pacts between nations, okay, NATO, SEATO, CENTO, these were all, and NATO is still living. SEATO and CENTO have died, but NATO is still living, but it could not help. See, the real unity could not. They are not doing anything now for Ukraine, okay, and Russia is creating havoc there. So all these political, moral, okay, family unions, they are to a certain extent a harmony, but they are constructed harmonies which are very brittle and frail. They can easily break up. That's what Srendra is explaining here. Let's look at the sentences. But it is only a divine love and unity that can possess in the light of what the human forms of these things seek for in the darkness. Okay, that means it's only a divine love and unity, not human love. Human love and unity, yes, for a certain amount of time there can be harmony and ananda also, but it is limited. It is frail, fragile. It doesn't last for too long. That can possess in the light of what the human forms of these things seek for in the darkness. For the true unity is not merely an association or an agglomeration like that of physical cells joined by a life of common interests. So he's going back to the physical cells. The agglomeration is not a real unity because the agglomeration of cells produces living tissue. But does that living tissue last forever? No, that's not the real unity. It lasts for a certain amount of time and it dissolves and disappears. So that's not the real unity. Real unity will be eternal and infinite. So that's what he's pointing out. That's why he's talking of the cells. When the one becomes the many also try to go back to the one, and that is the reason why even in matter, the atoms are all separate. They're all separate, but they start aggregating themselves. So if they're using the word here, what is the word he's using? Agglomeration. Okay, they come together and make living tissue. Now we have come to a higher level than matter. There is a unity which is expressing itself even at the physical level and the vital level. That's not the real unity. Then when you come to the mental, okay, that's what he's saying, that there can be a physical unity, not even an emotional unity of understanding, sympathy, solidarity, or close drawing together. All these are not the real unity. An emotional unity can last for a certain amount of time. As I said, happiness in the family or happiness in a society, okay, but it lasts only a certain amount of time. Understanding, sympathy. You may even have sympathy, but also that can disappear very easily. Solidarity or close drawing together. All these are not the real unity. Only then are we really unified with those separated from us by the divisions of nature. When we annul the division, and when you annul the division, what happens? Your ego disappears and find ourselves in that which seemed to us not ourselves. You are 7 of you there and I am here separately, but each one we may have sympathy for each other, okay? We may even feel as there may be also a certain feeling of oneness, but it's not the real thing. I don't see myself in all of you, and I don't think you will see yourself in me, okay? So that's it. When you annul the division, that means you go to the second level, the spiritual level, that the ego disappears, or rather, more accurately, the ego starts to disappear, and we realize a oneness. We start seeing that, oh, there is really a oneness everywhere, cosmic consciousness. Only then are we really unified with those separated from us by the divisions of nature. The divisions of nature is the one becoming the many. When we annul the division and find ourselves in that which seem to us not ourselves, there is a cosmic consciousness. Now he is explaining the difference between real unity and association. Is a vital and physical unity. Association, its sacrifice is that of mutual aid and concessions. Nearness, sympathy, solidarity create a mental, moral, and emotional unity. It's not a spiritual unity. Theirs is a sacrifice of mutual support and mutual gratifications. In other words, I am giving up some of my independence and joining a group, but I expect a return. When you expect a return, that's not the real unity. But the true unity is spiritual. Its sacrifice is a mutual self-giving. You give yourself to others, and the others also give themselves to you. An interfusion of our inner substance. Note that, okay? The inner substance. Our body is a substance, our vital is a substance, subtler substance, our mind is even subtler substance, and the spiritual substance is even subtler. And as you keep going higher and higher, the substance itself starts becoming more and more subtle, and therefore they can merge. That's the interesting part. Two glasses of water can merge, two stones cannot merge. So at the physical level, unity is impossible. But when you go to the vital level, some sort of merging is possible. Two glasses of water can merge and become one. Okay? But when you go higher and higher, the substance becomes so subtle that they can merge. And very interesting, he's giving later on, I'll give you the best example we can of two souls merging into one. Okay. It sacrifices mutual self-giving and interfusion of our inner substance. Interfusion. The two fuse into one. The law of sacrifice travels in nature towards its culmination. It is complete and unreserved self-giving. Unreserved. Not a single iota is held back. It awakens the consciousness of one common self in the giver and the object of the sacrifice. We feel ourselves to be one with everybody else. This culmination of sacrifice is the height even of human love and devotion when it tries to become divine. Okay? There is something called, what is it called? Utopian love, no? That means, no, there is another word. What is the word? When you give yourself really without expectation.
Unconditional. Unconditional.
Yeah, now, unconditioned is a normal word, but there is another word which says that your love is pure. What love is that?
You mean platonic?
Pardon?
Platonic?
I don't know. Anyway, so even at the human level, for short periods, sometimes the love can be quite good, okay, quite without expectation of return, you give yourself. Okay, that's what says this particular. This culmination of sacrifice is the height even of human love and devotion when it tries to become divine. For there too, the highest peak of love points to the heaven of complete mutual self-giving. Its summit is a rapturous fusing of two souls into one. When Mother and Sri Aurobindo assert that their consciousness is one, this is what is meant. And two souls merging into one, that they are one consciousness divided into two bodies. Okay. Now that's interesting because I'll give you an instance of Pavitrada's soul. Okay. When he passed away, he had cancer, and it was not well known in the ashram. But when he had cancer, he passed away. And when he passed away, mother says, he poured his consciousness into me. He says, okay, that means a fusion of two substances. Okay, his substance entered into mother and became one with mother. But it's a very interesting thing what she said in the agenda. She said that sometimes I can feel the element of Pavitrata in me. Okay, that means there is a oneness and yet there is a small difference also. Okay, so it's interesting. She says, I can feel sometimes the nature of Pavitrata in me. Okay, so that's it. And summit is a rapturous fusing, total oneness and deep joy. Rapturous fusing of two souls into one. The shades of this rapturous fusing is there even in humanity. Na? We can see there are so many cases. Husband and wife, they live very happily throughout their life, and at the end, when one person goes away, in a very short time, the other one also leaves. Okay, this is happening, and even it has been found even at the animal level that it happens. Okay, sometimes when even in the animal world, okay, when a mate dies, the other one also dies quite quickly, and there is even sorrowing. So some sort of shadow of the real oneness is there even at the human level, and even at the animal level. That's what Sridhar is pointing out here. Okay.
How can we compare this to the twins?
To the
Twins who are born together.
yeah, twins. Okay, but yeah, twins also they feel a oneness. You know? What happens to one also happens to the other. They made interesting experiments. I saw a video once in BBC program. So the twins were separated and kept in two different rooms. Okay, and one was subjected to certain emotional impacts, and they asked the other one whether he was feeling it. Okay, and he was or she was feeling it. I think it were two girls. So yes, so even at the physical level, there can be this unity when you are twins. You are built biologically in the same way. So that's interesting. Okay.
But there, the consciousness, when it is a question of twins, it is not about consciousness. No, it is only the physical.
No, physical consciousness is there. You're right that it's not spiritual. I think you're right that it's not spiritual. But can it not be spiritual also? It can be.
Would they share the same karma?
Also, Jasmine.
Because very often their lives run very parallel to each other. So do they?
Absolutely. What you're saying, I was going to say myself. Okay. Yeah, very, very true. Okay. They follow the same. The law of karma applies to both almost equally. Sometimes they marry the same, different people with same names, okay, with the same character, and the course of one life becomes very, very, it is imaged and parallel to the other one. Yeah, this sort of thing happens. It's a very interesting thing what you said. It's absolute. I have come across that. So that is unity, but almost at a physical and vital level. It can happen. But the spiritual oneness is quite different. Okay, so 8:35. So in fact, Srivendra says elsewhere, okay, liberté can never be at the human level. It can never be perfect because we are in the mental consciousness. True liberty comes when you're to the individual. True liberty comes when he comes out of his body, mind, life. Then he gets true liberty. But what about the others? So at the social level, true liberty is never possible unless all go to the spiritual level. That's why. What about equality? Same thing. The equality is best practiced in a democracy, not in other systems, political systems. But even in democracy, there is a big statement which says a professor of philosophy has one vote, and his driver and his maidservant also has got one vote. So there is no.
No, didn't understand.
Huh?
No, didn't get it. What did you say?
Okay. I said that in a democracy, The idea is that all are equal, na?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But is that really equal? Because they, as they say, the vote of one man, okay, is much more valuable when you are educated and when you are developed, and when you are not developed and illiterate. Okay, so the equality of democracy is not the real equality. That's what they're saying.
Mhm.
And in fact, they put in a very interesting manner. They say some are more equal than others.
Mm.
Then what about fraternity? Fraternity also same. Our sympathy, we may be very, very friendly with some people, but at the same time, there is, if not outright enmity, but there is a dislike of others. When you are in the normal human consciousness, dislike is very, very natural. So that's not the true fraternity. So all these three ideals of the French Revolution, liberté, égalité, fraternité, this is elsewhere, okay, are not possible at the human mental level. They are possible, they start becoming possible at the spiritual level. Okay? So, how much time do we have? We've got only 4 minutes left. So, I think we'll keep that. Yeah. We'll keep it for the next one. The next time, this profounder idea of the worldwide view. Okay?
Yeah.
So, any other thought, like Yasmin said about the twins, and Tariq also said about the twins, it's true. Okay, so that is some sort of unity, even at the physical level and the vital level. Very interesting. So this unity from an imperfect physical level, vital level, mental level, sympathy for others, goes to a spiritual level. And finally, it becomes absolutely perfect at the supramental level, in which the supramental race, okay, suppose there are 50 people or a small community where there is perfect harmony and perfect understanding of each other, there can be harmony. That is the real unity, but not otherwise. That's the attempt being made in the ashram and in Aurobindo. We must admit, not with much success, but this is only an attempt. And an attempt is better than no attempt at all. Okay? So, au revoir everybody.